G'day guys, hope you're all doing well. Today we're back with a new video for the first time in quite a bit of time. As you can see, there's a difference in my usual video angle and quality as I'm just kind of in the process of shifting things around for a new setup change. Now just, obviously getting into the video, as some of you may know, I have an absolute love for the company Spyre, and more specifically, the Loque mousepad that they released late last year. I genuinely see it as the best pad in terms of balance and how bloody strong it is, regarding it as one of my favorite all-time pads. But what's next? To answer that question, the company is obviously invisible. They have no socials, no any real form of communication besides the email linked to their website. So after some lurking and questions, the main website was down and a whole overhaul was done. Lo and behold, we have a new announcement for the future. We have a new lineup of pads, more so 2 new ones and 2 redone ones. First off, we do still have the Loque and nothing has changed, really, which I'll get into a bit later. Second, we do have the Kamek, which I do personally regard as one of the most underrated and best control pads ever made, which also went through a complete overhaul, a name change to Rosana, a color change from grey to pink, which I'll definitely miss, and a change of base to a slightly firmer foam-looking rubber base. Third is going to be the Apogee, a mint green control pad with a mid-density rubber base, which I also got bloody excited for as green is my favorite color, and we just don't see any unique colored pads as often. Last but not least is the pad I was the most excited for, and that is the Dahru. It's a nice red speed control pad with a soft rubber base. But there's quite a bit to unpack though. The sizing that most of us really appreciated from Spyre, which was the 500 by 500 square shapes, just like the Loque that I have, which then had to come down quite drastically to a 480 by 400 sizing. The stitching on the Loque, Apogee and Dahru are all the exact same. As for the Kamek/Rosana, the same old issue persists where the sole manufacturer of that pad has some very questionable stitching quality. It was brought up to the team and they'll be handling it internally. And as for its performance, I can't really speak on that as I do not have a Rosana in hand. A thing to point out is that this is not the final color, as these 2 pads were sent out by Spyre as their very early samples of their new pads, and they were used by different peripheral enthusiasts and reviewers in Australia until it made its trip to NZ, where I've had them for just over a week or so now. But of course, getting into the first pad on the desk is the Apogee. The sample is a little funky looking with a 2-tone colorway, but it was changed to a single tone mint green colorway for the final product. The stitching is pretty good. It's the same standard we saw on the Loque. It feels a bit softer and still the same height, which is just above the surface. Then we still have the OEM rubber base, which is way denser than the Loque, but not as heavy, which is due to the sizing difference. But anyways, last thing of course is on the surface. Now, to the eye, it is a pretty crispy, shiny layer with a softer, textured feel to it. And just because of that, it is honestly not as controlling as I thought it would be. For sure, a big jump in comparison to the Kamek. Pairing the Apogee with a very mid-density layer does make the experience very consistent, as you don't really have the opportunity to express any downward force as much for extra friction and resistance. So to me, it makes it feel like it's faster than the Loque by just a tad bit. Now the last pad of course is going to be the Dahru. Stitching feels a tiny bit more prominent on this copy than the Apogee, and instead of a very mid-dense base, we have a base which is also a tad softer feeling than my Loque. And then the most important part is obviously the surface. Once again, we have a very nice and crispy shiny looking surface, resembling kind of velvet in a way. So the feeling is a glide and just smooth to the touch. Now to me, the experience on both these pads have basically been the same. Now these pads are marketed as control pads, which I do feel is not the case at all, and I did voice this opinion up to the people in the company. I believe it's partially due to their choice of base density pairings, because as it stands, they feel quite similar. I would like to see the bases swapped though. Give me a speed pad with the base of the Apogee, and a control balance pad with the base of the Dahru. And of course, a last thing that I would love to see them come back to is the 500 by 500 square size. That's all. Saying so, I don't believe these pads are bad in any way. They both have a pretty good low initial friction and a good mid amount of friction and stopping power. You'll not go wrong with choosing either. So it's nice if you want the one color or the other, and they're pretty good for any game you might main. Whether it be tac shooters like Valorant or CS, or even higher motion FPS like Quake, Apex or BattleBit. That's all for today guys, thank you so much for watching, take care, and peace.
Oh gitu.
Oh, nice.
Oh my days.
Why did he do that, bro?